Hey, girl.
Hey, girl.
I'm Carmen.
And I'm Tyler Janae.
This is the Friendly Black Girls Podcast, and we are the Friendly Black Girls. Welcome back to the Friendly Black Girls Podcast. Hey, Tyler.
Hey, Carmen. How you doing?
I'm all right, girl. I see we in our pink again today.
Always.
I'm loving it. Listen, I have a question for you.
Okay.
What would you do if you saw one of your girlfriends cheating?
Oh, this is such a serious topic. For me, I like to keep my eyes closed because I feel like it's not my business.
See no evil, hear no evil.
Exactly,
no evil.
but definitely don't ask me to be involved.
Okay,
I would say. But yeah, I don't want to know nothing.
I
don't want to be
involved. A part of
it.
it.
I don't want to be held accountable. I want to sleep at night. What
Okay.
about you?
This is a tough one because back in the day, I actually got into it with a good girlfriend of mine where she stopped talking to me for years because she was out cheating with her boyfriend. And I didn't snitch on her or anything. I just legitimately didn't know that she was out cheating. And so me and her were out that night. We had stayed in a hotel along with some other girlfriends. It was like a girls' night out. Mm-hmm. And she disappeared. And you know you always have that one friend that always just disappears.
Okay.
And so we woke up the next day and we were ready to go to brunch and we were like, okay, where is she? Mm-hmm. And so anyway, long story short, the boyfriend called and I answered the phone because at this point I was concerned for her well-being. Okay. I was like,
as you should.
Where is she? You know what I mean? And so he had asked me, had I seen her? And I was like, no, have you? Like, no, we haven't seen her.
Okay.
And so anyway, it was this big to do. And looking back on it, I mean, I probably still would have did the same thing because I had no idea.
Okay.
But at that point in time, I don't know if I would have like really said anything to her about the cheating. I'd probably been like, girl, just next time, let me know so I could be in on it. So
she was out there cheating. That's why she was disappearing.
Well, I don't know what she was doing, per se. I just know she wasn't nowhere where we were.
She won't communicate
at home
with you or a boyfriend.
Yeah, so that part. So at the end of the day, like, just let me in on whatever activities you got going on. I feel like now, pushing 40, I definitely, if I saw one of my friends cheating on their spouse, because we're in a different phase of life now. Yeah. It's like giving husband, it's giving wife, it's that kind of thing, like long-term commitments. I feel like I definitely would be like, girl, what you doing? Mm-hmm. Like, what's up with you?
Like, come on now. I know you better than this.
Yeah, so, and this is just as I've matured over the years. I can't say that always would have been my response. But, so the reason I asked you this question is because I came across a tweet where a young lady was out, and we're going to put it up on the screen for y'all to see. It's a text message actually inside of a tweet. The young lady says, I just feel like as my friend, if you seeing me do some dumb SHIT while I'm drunk, then you should stop me. Even with y'all know when I'm sober, I be embarrassed that I be on that touchy-feely stuff and that I'm doing while I'm drunk. Sorry, I'm trying to interpret this text because it's like all over the place. And she also says, so I don't even know why y'all would even let me do that to a stranger, knowing I would have regretted it, knowing I had a man. That's just so weird to me. Y'all not my friends for real, and it shows. So the internet was up in arms. This has like 4.7 million views at this point.
Wow.
And everybody had different things to say about that. So what do you feel about that text?
She's wrong.
You think she's wrong?
I mean, my thing is, how do you try to hold somebody else accountable for what you do?
Yeah.
You should have not let me drink because you know how I act. Excuse me.
So you feel like she's dead wrong.
Dead
so
wrong.
So me, I kind of feel her, Tyler. I'm like looking at it like, if you see your friend super drunk and you know she got a man, why are you letting her leave with another guy? Like, you could at least tap her on the shoulder and be like, hey, girl.
But this doesn't seem
like
going? This is just one time. Like, this seemed like this is something she might do consistently.
Okay. All right.
So that's what you would do if this is something she does on a normal basis, and you know, like, she's gonna get drunk tonight and she's gonna start rolling up on people.
I would at least give it a college try.
Yeah.
Like, hey, girl, if I know that you usually don't listen, it's just like I sleep good at night knowing that I was like, don't you go with that man. But tell us what you would do, ladies, in the comments. What would you do if you had a friend that you saw going down the wrong path? You knew she had a man or a husband or a wife or a girlfriend or whatever her taste is. What would you do in that scenario? Let us know in the comments. But as we keep this show going, we have a very interesting topic today. Okay, we are going to be talking about trauma for your mama and how it impacts your relationships, but most importantly, your friendships. So without further ado, we want to introduce our amazing expert guest, Shay Nicole. How are you?
Good, and you?
I'm well. Welcome to the Friendly Black Girls Podcast.
Welcome. Thanks for having me.
We're glad to have you. So today we are getting into a lot. But before we do, tell us about yourself. Let the people know that you got credentials.
Yes.
Okay.
I'm a licensed therapist. I am licensed in Georgia, California, Florida, and South Carolina.
Yes.
So I can see clients in those states. For therapy, I specialize in helping women who have had childhood trauma and resolving that. That's all I do is trauma. So that is my specialty. Very heavy and specifically somatic therapy. And I'm sure we'll get into that as we talk.
Well, tell us now. Yeah. What is that? What is that?
So somatic therapy involves the body. It involves us in really understanding that trauma is held in the body. And so we do a lot of mindfulness and modalities that help us to get into that in sessions so that we can release that trauma that's held on by the body or other events that happen. So it's inviting the body into talk therapy per se, overall.
So I know for me, and this could be completely different than what you're talking about, but when I think about the body and how it responds to your emotions and your feelings, I hold a lot of stuff in my shoulders. My shoulders are always tense, especially like when I'm stressed. Like today,
put your shoulders down, girl.
Yeah, like on the way here, trying to get all my stuff together, get my notes together, and I had a million other things going on. My shoulders was up to here, and I had to make myself be like, release your shoulders, count to 10, get yourself together. So is that what you're talking about, or is it a little bit different?
It can be that.
Okay.
Some people may hold trauma in different areas of their body. I wouldn't say that there's like one specific area where someone may hold trauma. It just depends on how they manifest it. But per se, when somebody goes through traumatic events and they didn't get a chance to process it out or get the support that they needed at that time, their body can hold on to that trauma long term.
That's a really good point, because it makes me think about, like, with friendships, you have those friends who might have that abandonment. What's the term I'm talking about? It's like an abandonment issue.
Right. Yeah.
And they feel like if you're not hanging out all the time and I'm not seeing you all the time, like, it must mean that, we're not friends, you hate me. And so can you talk more about, like, what are some strategies that you would give someone who might be dealing with that from a friend who...
Right.
Yeah.
And so... strategies per se, I would say first you have dealing with that from somebody else is that, of course, boundaries and knowing what you're dealing with, because some people may internalize that and blame themselves. So in dealing with individuals who may have trauma, of course, you want to be kind, you want to be gentle, you want to be open, but also know that there are boundaries in that and knowing where the buck stops for you so that you're not taking on a lot of their issues as their own, because that could eventually affect you and then the friendship, of course.
Yeah. Good point.
So let's back it up a little bit. Trauma.
Yes.
For your mama.
Yes.
What is trauma? Like, what is that? Because I feel like we throw that word around so much these days because everybody has we've gotten a hold of all of these words like narcissists and, I'm trying to think of some other things, but trauma is something that we keep hearing over and over again. So what does it really mean?
Trauma really means anything that your body is not able to handle. Trauma is more so a body response, not exactly the event. People confuse trauma as like, oh, it's just the event. No, it's how did your body also respond to that? Because you may have two different people that goes through the same exact car accident, for example. One person may walk away and they're just fine and they're like, oh, I wasn't impacted by that. I feel great. Maybe they had the resources and support at home. Maybe the other person did not, but they're still having flashbacks or some type of nightmares, or they're still replaying the accident over and over in their mind, or they're afraid to drive. So now we see that two people can go through the same thing, but they may process it differently. So now we look at it, oh, that person may have trauma because of how their body responded and how their body handled it. So trauma is anything that your body's capacity cannot handle.
Ooh, so now I have so many questions. Oh my God, I hope I remember them all. First, what determines how someone handles trauma?
That's a tricky question. So it just depends on what's available to them. Of course, growing up, we don't determine that per se by ourselves because we're just children. But as you get older, you have to think about, well, what are there supports that are in need for someone to process? Do they have somebody to talk to? Are they able to go to therapy? Or do they have a safe space at home to talk to somebody that they trust? Or are they able to journal? Do they have those resources or coping skills already in place to handle that or get the help that they may need? And some people may not. Therefore, they're not able to process their trauma. They're not able to talk to anyone they trust, and then they just hold it in.
So there's nothing biological. So it's not like a DNA thing where it's like, if I come from this lineage of people, then I'm more likely to be able to
Just a little
handle
bit.
trauma.
Okay.
We have to back it up to I think it's what's the word I'm looking for?
Epidemiologist?
I think so, or it's another epigenetics.
Come on,
there it is.
Larry.
Epigenetics.
I've never heard of that before.
So epigenetics is where, yes, sometimes our DNA does determine how we may respond to trauma. That goes back to slavery for Black folks, where
Doesn't everything?
yes, it goes back to slavery.
Lord.
I'm not sure if they've done studies on ancestors of those the lineage of slaves, but they have done it on Holocaust survivors. And so the study has shown that individuals that are the descendants of Holocaust survivors or individuals that went through the Holocaust, they have shown that those individuals have certain trauma responses to certain just stressors in their lives. So you may already have DNA downloaded to how you may respond to stress. And they study mothers because we as women get one set of eggs. And so that's the eggs we are born with. Men, of course, reproduce sperm every day. Women, we can't. We get one set of eggs. So that's where they study most of the time on the woman's eggs and what has been downloaded into their DNA and the lineage from there, because that will be a lot basically telling of, well, how are some of these things being followed in our DNA and how are the trauma responses there?
I think that's a really good point, because I think about myself when we're talking about just trauma as an individual and your childhood and growing up and what you might experience. So for me and my friendships, I've always been very sensitive, right? And I take things very personal, right? And so could you tell us what are some other ways that trauma might come out and what it looks like in a friendship?
Ooh. So that is a loaded question. It can look like a lot of different things. And when you said what you said about being sensitive, that actually goes back to, I don't know if you've heard of attachment styles before. And so attachment styles has a lot to say about, of course, where we come from, but also how we relate to other people as adults as well. And so when you have someone that is maybe clingy or very like, where's my friend? Why they haven't texted back? You know, what's up, girl?
Best friend.
So now we're looking at more of the anxious, ambivalent type attachment style, because that's telling of like what maybe your childhood was like and what was going on there. And so that may manifest in always checking and not always like, are you going to be there for me? Or is something going to happen? And so it's a lot of this anxiety happening. And then, of course, we might have people that desire friendships, but they're shutting folks out, and they're just like, they might start in the beginning, but then they're always doing things alone or like uninviting themselves to things, or they're like, I'm not going to come. And so it may be that they don't trust anyone, so they're shutting themselves off, hensing dismissive attachment style.
What kind of experiences can lead to that? So if we talk about people that shut people out, because this podcast, we want to talk to the ladies who are not only in healthy, happy friendships, but those that are seeking to be in happy, healthy friendships. Yeah. So what kinds of experiences can people kind of tie that behavior to, where I'm just shutting people out and not really wanting to get to know people?
That goes back to childhood. Okay. My clients are always like, yes, I always say, it goes back to childhood. Mm-hmm. Yes, that's my specialty. So the types of experiences that may lead to someone having a dismissive or avoidant attachment style may be that their parents were someone that they could not rely on. So they ended up having to rely on themselves. So these are our extremely independent folks. Mm-hmm. These are the folks that want to do everything themselves. They can't ask for help. They can't, because asking for help means I got to trust somebody else to do what I asked them to. So they knew growing up that their parents didn't help them, so that they found ways to help themselves or found ways to get their own needs met. Right. So that shows up as, I'm going to shut people out because I don't trust them to do or meet my needs for me.
Yeah. Got something?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like that is 100% me, and me and my friends get into our own situations about that all the time, because I'll ask them to do something, like, can you, like, watch my dog or something? I'm constantly checking in because I'm worried that they're going to make a mistake. Mm-hmm. And to them, it's like, you don't trust me? You know, like, we've been friends forever, and it's like, it's not that, but... you know, I just need to check in and make sure. And so I think that's a really good point to make me kind of go back and think about my childhood and to see what I could do to be a better friend dealing with that.
Right.
So talking about Tyler's point that she just brought up and just what you said too, like, so we know how it impacts the person with the trauma. Mm-hmm. How does it impact your friends? How does it impact the people around you?
It can definitely impact people to eventually leave you alone, just where you are. It will sever the friendship. And a lot of people may have the question of, like, why can't I maintain friendships? And so, of course, your friends are just like, well, we're trying to be open and honest with you, but maybe you're shutting us out, or maybe you're too clingy, or you're trying to control things. And so eventually that may just lead to not having friends.
When I think about a scenario like that, just thinking about, because I know for me, let me start over. Trauma. I feel like people don't know sometimes they don't know if they have trauma, right? Because my friend, she said to me one time, well, you probably have a lot of trauma based on the things that have happened to you in life. And I'm like, really? And she's like, yes, of course. So how can we determine if we, in fact, are carrying around trauma, if we're carrying around baggage?
Awareness is going to be the biggest thing here. And that means, are you open enough to go back and kind of take a more of an objective perspective of what happened in my childhood? And because a lot of times we tend to put our parents on the pedestal and say our parents are perfect, they can't do no wrong. And then as we become adults, we may see, like, wait a minute, these are not the same people I thought I grew up with. You're starting to notice the flaws in your parents. And so I like to say everybody has flaws. Nobody's perfect. So can you see where there may have been areas in your life where you didn't get the support that you needed? Or also, are you hanging on to things from the past? Can be an indicator. Are you always bringing up stuff from the past or dwelling on things on the past that were negative experiences? Or are you dwelling on the future, and are you anxious about things that may or may not happen, or always constantly worrying? So you're looking for those signs of hanging on to the past or the future, or you're avoiding tough conversations, or you're avoiding things that may remind you of the trauma that happened. So there's several different indicators. Or are you hypervigilant? Are you always, like, skeptical or paranoid about people? And so,
I mean, I'm definitely, like, you're just checking off some boxes here. I mean, for me, I'm definitely hyper independent. But I am a product of divorce. Like, my parents got divorced when I was around 12 or 13. And they definitely argued a lot. And I was the only child. So I spent a lot of time helping myself, so to speak, in terms of, like, navigating my emotions, taking time to go to my room and get my thoughts together, playing with myself, that kind of thing.
Yes.
And so now that I'm thinking about it, I'm like, wow, that's probably why I'm hyper independent right now. And it's something that I really struggle with. I really struggle with asking for help. I really struggle with independence, even in my not only my platonic relationships, but my romantic relationship as well. So just thinking about that. Scary.
Yeah.
Okay, so how do we get over this hump? Like, how do we navigate this? Like, if we find out that we have trauma and we know that we have trauma, how do we fix it? And then on the other side, if you're a friend dealing with somebody who is projecting their trauma onto us, how do we deal with that?
Yes. So, of course, first, always say awareness. Do you have the awareness that there is a problem? Because a lot of people will not admit that there are problems that need to be dealt with. So after you have that awareness, I would say the second step is to find what vehicles you want to use to get help. I always say that there can be more than therapy. Of course, I'm going to advocate for therapy because I am a therapist, but everybody may not have access to therapy. So I want to look at, are there some self-help books that you can start reading out there to really kind of enlighten yourself of like, okay, this is what's going on with me. And so there are plenty of self-help books. I do a lot of inner child work. So looking for books that may have inner child work in it, or maybe giving you more information about how you grew up, or how your parents may have not been emotionally available. So self-help books, journaling is always a great place to start, of like writing things down, but that may be overwhelming to people. And if you feel like, hey, after I've tried journaling, or maybe I've read a book or two, is it time for me to get professional help through a therapist? Or some people may seek more so religious or spiritual guidance, and of course that's their choice. But of course, I'm always going to advocate for mental health therapy because we've been trained to do this.
I know that's right. Trained to do this.
Do you recommend for those people like that individual therapy versus group therapy? Because that's something that I just now I'm really finding out that group therapy exists. So who would you recommend group therapy for?
I would say both, if possible.
Okay.
Individual therapy is nice for you to just give you space to talk about what's been going on with you, find strategies that work specifically for you. But of course, in group therapy, you're able to relate to other people that may have been going through the same things or still experiencing the same things that you are. And you're able to relate to those folks and understand their perspectives, and maybe even get ideas of how they're coping with it too.
That's nice.
I'll be scared they gonna tell my business though.
Well, they can't do that.
I'm like,
There's rules to group therapy. You
Okay.
cannot. Then whoever's facilitating the group should just always say like, hey, what goes on in here stays on here.
Here's this paper, this
Yep.
NDA.
You're supposed to
Let's
sign
this.
You're not supposed to do that because then it can disrupt the group itself and the dynamics of the group. So you definitely don't want to talk about your group members outside.
Telling my business because you in here telling me all your business. So you
Right.
be smart about it.
All right now.
Be very smart. Don't get crazy with it. So no, that's a great question. So maybe we should consider group therapy for the ladies at Black Girl Social Club.
I think they would love
that
it.
might be a great opportunity.
Because I need it.
Yeah, that might be a great opportunity. So to close out this portion of the conversation, can you just give some tips, maybe any books, anything that the ladies can look into in terms of navigating trauma, particularly in their friendships?
Correct. So the book that I always usually give to most of my clients or recommend is Adult Children of Emotionally Immature Parents.
Ooh.
That book is really good. And take your time reading that book, because every time I've given somebody, they were like, ooh, the first few pages, they were reading me. And I was like, look, you might see some of yourself in there and some of your parents in there. So take your time in reading that book. So that is one, like my top book that I do recommend. And it actually has other books and workbooks that go along with it. So the author has a line of different things if you want to check her out. Of course, there's a bunch of inner child books that I recommend. And then, of course, if you have a friend that's going through this and giving you what they should not be giving, try to breach the conversation lightly, because you know, people can get offended when you hold the mirror up to their face and you're like,
For sure.
hey,
Extremely.
right,
Offended.
hey girl, but you want to come from a more caring place. I always tell people when you are afraid to have a difficult conversation, come to it with something, comment them with something that's positive about them first. You want to you draw more bees with honey.
Yeah.
So you want to be nice. You want to bring it, hey girl, blah, blah, blah. I love our friendship, blah, 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 blah. But then now you're going to come in, well, here's the issue. And you want to tie that up with, okay, how can I help you resolve this issue? I call that the sandwich technique.
I love the sandwich technique.
Ooh, girl, I'm gonna have to work on the sandwich. Right now, I have like just a little piece of lettuce and tomato, but I'm struggling with putting it all together, because the way that I approach tough conversations is tough. I approach it with tough love most of the time.
Straight to the point.
Yeah, straight to the point. Let's get to it and let's get out. But I understand that doesn't always work with all of my friends. Some friends it works with. Some friends it definitely does not.
Right. Know your friends.
So just knowing your friends, I think, is really, really important.
Exactly.
Do you have anything else on this?
No, I think that is fabulous. Where can they find those books that you were mentioning?
Most likely Amazon.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because I know where to go.
So we have some questions from some listeners. Okay, so we're going to bring you in on that piece. So Tyler, you want to do the first one?
Sure.
Okay.
All right. So this person says, I have a friend whose parenting skills I'm really questioning, but I have no idea how or even if I should say something. She kind of just lets her daughter do whatever, and it's starting to get uncomfortable for me. Aside from the fact that she treats her like a little adult, from clothes to things that she allows her to watch and listen to. And recently at a house party, she had let her daughter have a few sips of alcohol. Her daughter's only 13, and she's really thrown off, and she feels like she needs to say something. Is there a way she can do this without completely ruining the friendship?
Ooh. So first and foremost, I like to tell people when it comes to issues, you cannot control the other person's response. We cannot control whether the friendship's going to end or not. So I tell people, before you approach somebody with something that you know is going to be a difficult conversation, be prepared for any and every consequence.
Yeah.
So be prepared for whatever might happen.
So
Worst case,
when you
best case.
bring that topic forward, you are now ready for whatever.
Yeah.
If you are not ready for whatever, then maybe you should pull back and wait until you are. But in going and saying that, you know, bring your concerns up. Use the sandwich technique. You know, hey, girl, I see you're trying to, you know, give your daughter the life. You're trying to really support her and allow her to find herself or whatever she's trying to do in her parenting style. But here's some things I'm concerned about, and this is how, you know, maybe it's impacting me. Maybe she has some personal examples that she could relate to the mom to help her understand where she's coming from, so that it's not, you know, blaming per se, but more so like, hey, these are some of the things that maybe I experienced or I note or may happen because of what you're doing. And then maybe, hey, can we work to this together, or can we help you find some other ways to parent in a more healthy manner? You know, again, they may be responsive, they may not.
Well, I was talking to a friend of mine named Coriel. Some of you may know her. She told me there ain't nothing you can say to a mama or a parent that they will take, I guess, lightly in terms of their parenting skills.
Right.
How do you feel about that? What are your thoughts?
I can probably say that's true. I'm a mom myself. I have two. So
Okay.
when people do come to be about my kids, I'm like,
You're like, hold on now. Wait a minute.
But since I am aware of, yes, people are coming to critique, and a lot of people are coming to critique in love, I have to listen to that and take it with a grain of salt of like, it's the same way as a teacher coming to a parent and saying, hey, little Bobby's in here cutting up. And the mom's like, no, my baby's an angel.
Yeah.
Like,
And Bobby swinging from the chandelier.
No, I experienced that. I used to be a teacher. I used to hear it all the time.
So you have, you know, and knowing your friends and knowing the people you're with, are they going to be open to criticism and feedback? And that's going to be one of the things of like knowing who you're with and who you're hanging around. And it is a lot of parents are going to be on the defensive, like, but then of course I as a parent, I'm going to sit back and I'm going to go question my child, and I'm going to talk to them about their behaviors and see what's going on, because I want to help the teacher and help my child both in the situation to make sure that the environment is better for them, or seeing what I need to do on my end as a parent, because my child's out there repping me as a parent. I don't
That part.
want my child out there just doing whatever.
I mean, for me in this scenario, I would say something. I would. And I'm that kind of girl that whatever it is at the end of the day. So if you decide not to be my friend, that's perfectly okay with me. But to me, a minor child's well-being supersedes your ego, supersedes even this friendship. For real, for real. If you gave me the title of auntie, and I see you passing my little niece a margarita or a mimosa or whatever, and she's not 21, I'm gonna have some questions.
Right.
Excuse me, what you doing? So, I mean, for me, if it were me in that scenario, I would certainly say something, and however mama feels, she gonna have to feel.
I agree with you 100%. I would most definitely say something as well. I don't think I could just let something like that go.
Right.
I feel like it wouldn't make me a good person, a good educator, a good friend, none of the above, especially the alcohol part. But I'm starting to think about the clothing, right? Because I feel like that's where it gets kind of tricky, because, you know, I'm not their parent, you know, but I don't want them to be in a situation where, you know, a predator is looking or something like that. And so I guess my question would just be, how do you even bring that up? How do you even, because I'm a friend that tiptoes around stuff, right? I might be like, well, girl, pull your shorts down a little bit in front of the mom so she can see that I'm talking to her instead of talking to the mom first. So what are your thoughts?
Just with love, right? Just do it with love.
That's what I would say. Do it with love. There isn't going to be a perfect scenario that's going to get the result you want. You know, a lot of people try to say, well, how can I, you know, get this response? And you can try. I tell people all the time, people can come to your door with the singing the monogram, as far as like, I got this message delivery. It could come in a cute box.
Yes, honey.
It could be all the things. It could be bells and whistles.
In
but
pink.
Right, it could be pink. But if people are not ready to receive what you're giving,
that box is going in the trash.
Right.
Dang.
It could look cute. It could look nice. You could have spent $1,000 to deliver the message. But if people are not ready to receive it, no matter what way you put it.
Yeah, and that's where we just get back, I guess, to the trauma. And it's not, you know, everyone, I'm assuming everyone has trauma. Would that be a correct statement?
A good amount of the population does.
Okay. So everybody has, I'll just put it this way, everybody has their thing.
Right.
Everybody has something that they're working through, right? And so, like you said, you really can't control that, and all we can do is make sure that we're not doing things with malice, and we're doing things from a good place, and just kind of move from there, and then go to therapy and read the books.
Do the work.
All right. The second question we have says, hey, ladies, hoping you'll get around to my question. I'll make it quick. I've been friends with my bestie for over 20 years. We do everything together. But I feel like when we get around other groups of friends, she switches up. She starts acting like some affluent influencer, acting different, talking different, and if I'm honest, kind of being a mean girl. I was trying to let it slide, but the other day, things got out of hand for me when she started talking trash about a mutual friend because she is marrying what she calls a blue-collar guy. This particular group of girls goes for ballers and high-earning men. But I know my friend's dating history, and even who she is currently dating isn't in alignment with the conversations they're having. At this point, I don't know if I want to hang around her anymore. What should I do?
Ooh.
This is a tale as old as time.
Yes.
I mean, switching up when you get in the presence of other people.
That's some people pleasing right there.
Oh, is that what that is?
That's some people trying to fit in, and I call that chameleon behavior.
Ooh.
Chameleon behavior. Because
you're switching it up. You're trying to blend in with the crowd so that you're accepted, aka people pleasing.
Okay.
So again, trauma response, because you're trying to connect with folks, and this is the way a lot of younger children people please, because they're trying to fit in, because we all want to fit in. We want to have a group of friends that we can talk to outside of our family. And so this is classic people-pleasing behaviors with I'm trying to fit in, I'm trying to be in the in crowd, I'm trying to let these people know I'm like them so that I'm accepted by them.
Wow.
And so for her, when she sees that behavior, of course, could have the conversation, but then you want to reevaluate your values and who do you want in your friendship circle. And so that's you're going to have to have those hard conversations of, do I have the conversation with her? Do I try to talk to her about this? Or is it time for me to let go? Because I think a lot of people do have the hardest thing about letting go of friendships or people that they may have grown up with or been around for a long time. But if someone's exhibiting values or behavior that isn't comfortable, that you're not comfortable with or you're not cool with, do you either distance yourself from them? Do you make them an associate?
Demotion.
About being demoted.
Might have to demote them.
Or do you completely cut them out? Because there are levels. Everybody's not going to be your closest bestie that you're like divulging all your secrets. But there may be a level of a friendship that, okay, now let me step back and we're going to do check-in calls or we're going to do texts every now and then.
Yeah.
Or are you just going to stop talking to them?
I think that's great advice. I mean, I've seen this happen before. I've seen it with my own eyes. And did I feel like it was worth a conversation? Not really. I think some people might feel like it's worth a conversation, but for me, I'm just like, oh, okay, clocked it. I got your number, and, now I kind of know how to move. But, it's not that important. It wasn't that important to me, but I think maybe if it were like maybe my best friend, that might be more of an issue for me. But they weren't necessarily my best friend, just, some girls that, I hung out with. So I didn't really feel like it was worth the conversation. I don't know, Tyler. What would you do?
When I first looked at this, the first couple of sentences, I was like, oh, she don't want her friend to grow. Like, she don't want her friend to evolve because it says they've been friends for 20 years, right? So that's a lot of growth.
Yeah.
And as friends, sometimes you want to be an influencer. Sometimes you want to be a corporate girly, right? So you might change your vibe trying to just figure out what works for you. And some friends don't like that because they knew you, when you were in your corporate baddie era, and now you're trying to be influencer star, right? But as it kept going and it started talking about how she was starting to talk trash about other people who weren't doing the same thing as her, that's where I draw the line. And so I agree with you 100%. I wouldn't have the conversation either at that point because it's just like, that's what you're trying to do, that's who you are. Like, enjoy, have a good time. But if I hear you talking trash about a friend of ours, then I might have to check you because I love you, but I gotta check you, boo.
Respectfully,
that's our friend.
Respectfully. Yeah, I mean, so I think these scenarios pop up often, but I think just knowing how to navigate, to your point, is just so important. So thank you for, all the goodness that you share with us today, all of the information. Where can the people find you on the internet?
Instagram is the best place to find me. Trauma Heal Her. So instead of the ER at the end is HER. Or, of course, if you're looking for therapy, I do have a wait list right now.
Come on, wait list. What? VIP section.
Do have a wait list at healingspotATL.com.
I love it. So that means she's really good, y'all. So check her out. And if you have questions for us, hit us up on our Instagram page, DM us. We also are going to put a link in our bio where you can submit questions and even some of your stories. But until then, until next time, remember that being a good sister is a blessing, and having a good sister is even more of a blessing. Cheers to that. Bye.